faster than a speeding typewriter, more powerful than a printing press, able to speak over tall buildings in a single sound. Look, up on the dial!
It's a conservative!
It's a liberal! It's Supermouth! Yes, it's Supermouth, strange visitor from the past with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal talk show hosts. Supermouth, who can change the course of local politics, bend ears with his bare mouth, and who, disguised as Mike Wiley, mild-mannered reporter for a great metropolitan radio show, fights a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way.
Good morning, and welcome to another adventure into podcast radio. I'm your host, Mike Wiley. This show on Fridays is called The War, this week with war correspondent Mike Wiley. That's me. My show on Mondays is called Upon Further Review. That's where I examine all the bullshit the Democrats give us and expose their lies and fraud. I'm going to do some of that today because I have to. First of all, the war this week. The United States has been at war with the combined forces of the Confederate Democrat Progressive Manchurian Democrats since officially 1860. You can always tell when we're at war with the Democrats is when something terrible happens to the country. For instance, a Republican gets elected president. A Republican wins by a landslide. A Republican is so strong, and the Republican Party is so strong, that it wins 3 landslide votes in a row, like 1920, 1924, and 1928. And then the Democrats have to do something to put themselves back into power, like coming up with a fraudulent and fake Great Depression, which we already did a show on. That's in Book 2 of the Democrat Hate of American Freedom. And Milton Friedman tells and explains how the Great Depression was a myth and that should have actually never happened. But it did happen because the Democrats had decided that they needed to do something to affect power. Democrats must be in power all the time, okay? When a Democrat, let's put this, when a Republican becomes president, what's the first thing the Democrats do? Attack! And Donald Trump's been president now for 1 week. And the attacks on him began on what I call Terrorist Tuesday, which was January 21st. And we've been putting up with your bullshit as usual. But at least it gives us something to talk about, and I have to present to you what's going on so you know. So I've got several things here. I wanted to just point something out to you before we get to this. I'm going to try to keep these shows to 30 minutes to an hour, or 45 minutes the most. I've got some videos I'm going to show you presenting facts of what is going on and how you can tell when the Democrats are full of shit. First of all, the Oil for Scam program. The Democratic Party, once they stole the 2020 election with the aid of Communist China, because Communist China was going to be the main benefactor of the election fraud. Okay, and that was the Oil for Scam program. We decided that we were going to take the Democrats decided that they were going to take our oil and ship it to China. And in exchange, we'll be using Chinese electric cars, Chinese electric fans, Chinese electric solar panels, Chinese electric wind farms, and all that other shit that doesn't work and wouldn't work because we do not have an electric grid strong enough or large enough to be able to provide for all that. So it was a scam to begin with. It's over now. The scam is over. But not the war. The war continues. Energy Secretary Granholm. Now, she We don't have documented proof that she had a frontal lobotomy done, but she sure acted like she did. She secretly consulted with top CCP, that's Chinese Communist Party, energy officials before SPR releases. Energy Secretary Jennifer Holmgren speaks about the Biden administration's decision to tap the Strategic Petroleum Reserve during a press briefing in the White House on November 23rd, 2021. Why would the Democrats ship our oil that we've been building up for years to basically our enemy who's building ships and military and satellites and everything you can think of to be able to take and control us? Now, you got to remember the communists don't want to attack us. They just want to take us over. So in order to take us over, they've got to do it from within. And to do it from within, they have to have assistance. They have to have people or traitors willing to help them destroy America so they can come and go, hey, we'll help you because we're nice guys. And here's some free lo mein, okay? So Granholm consulted with the CCP energy officials before each release. She coordinated the treason of sending U.S. oil. Then on November 23rd, the White House announced the release of 50 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, the largest release of its kind in U.S. history. They're not even in office for 1 year due to a fraudulent election, which has been proven time and time again by this person here with all the documentation you could ever need. And part of it we're going to discuss today because it has to do with January 6th, which is part of the election fraud. That was the cover-up. That was the escape. That, you know, they went in and they stole the money from the bank, but then they have to get out of the bank and they have to get away. That was January 6th, to get them to get away from the crime they committed. So we have documented proof that the Biden administration, or should I say the Obama third-term presidency, was coordinating with China to steal our oil and send it to them. Okay, and then they went ahead and they organized a deal with Iran to allow Iran to make all this money that they weren't supposed to make by shipping oil to China. China gets all the oil, Iran gets all the money, and Americans and Israelis get killed. Okay? Now, the war between the states, which is the war that we're in, I'm going to prove it to you now. The war between the states began, well, officially, it began 1 month after Abraham Lincoln was elected in 1860. In November of 1860, Abraham Lincoln was elected president. 1 month later, the state of South Carolina seceded from the Union, and within the next 6 months, 10 other states seceded from the Union. 11 states seceded from the Union and began to call themselves the Confederate States of America. That war has never ended. You think it has. You've been told it did. But if you follow what the Democrats have been doing to this country for 165 years, you realize these assholes hate us. These assholes want to enslave us. And they are assholes. I'll give you an example. Some guy named Donald Trump gets elected president. And Donald Trump wants to build the border wall, and he wants to protect the United States from a planned invasion of criminals by the Democrats for a specific reason. The Democrats are up to something, and we don't know what it is, but we know what it is, and I'm going to explain it to you now because it all fits together. Look, I was a financial guru. I'm able to put together facts and tie them all together and then sit in the courtroom and be put on the stand and answer all the questions the opposing attorney wants to ask me to make me seem like I'm an idiot, but I'm not. We have all the evidence we need to show that there's been a war. It continues to be a war, and you know it. You know in your heart that Democrats are at war with this country. They've always been at war with this country. Now, I've done 2 shows. I've done plenty of shows covering this. You want to see them? They're on rumble.com or they're on YouTube. The older shows that I first started 2.5 years ago, those are on Rumble. Those were also an hour and a half shows because I really go into detail on stuff because I have to educate you on what the hell's going on. Otherwise, you're not going to know. So, how can we tell that there's a war between the states? Well, let's see. There wasn't a war between the states when Obama was president. Why was that? Why was there no war between the states when Obama was president? Well, because Obama was president. He controlled the federal government, okay? And at a certain time, they had the House and the Senate, which they then lost after Obama went too far with the fake health care plan, Affordable Care Act. Shove it up your ass, Health Care Act. That's what it was. And it was unconstitutional because they tried to tax us for it, and it was ruled to be unconstitutional, I believe in 2016 or something. Okay, so here's a news article. This is CNN. 16 states on Monday evening filed a lawsuit challenging President Donald Trump's national emergency declaration. The group of states, led by California General Xavier Becerra, the scumbag IV, filed a lawsuit in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California. Why did he not file it in Florida? Why did he not file it in Texas, or Oklahoma, or Tennessee, or Georgia, or Arkansas, or Missouri, or any of these red states? File it in blue states. They're actually red states, but blue capitals. So if your governor is a Democrat, you're a blue state. And there were 16 governors. And this was, I believe, 2017 or 2018 that this lawsuit began. And the Democrats came up with a great program to get rid of, to pick up more states. And they picked up 6 more states. So now they're at 22, but they picked up 6 more states through fraudulent election laws in 2018 and the gerrymandering of congressional districts to take back control. I've already covered that, so I'm not going to cover it again. I'm just going to mention it. So back in 2016, 2018, 2017, there were 16 states that didn't want Trump to be able to take money from the defense budget to spend on defending the nation. And I can understand. Why would you allow the President of the United States to take money from the defense budget to use to defend the nation? It's not to defend the nation. Our defense budget is to defend other countries, not our country. Our country can be run over by all the shitheads in the world. The Democrats don't care because they have a deal with them. They have a deal with the shitheads. The group of states led by California attorneys here. So the attorney generals from Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada. Now, Nevada then had a Democrat governor. Now we have a Republican governor. I left in 2018 when the Democrat governor was going to be elected. I was getting the hell out. Oregon and Virginia joined California in the lawsuit. Now, Virginia is not in the new lawsuit because Virginia has a Republican governor, and therefore the state is basically red. So it's not blue. It's the latest challenge to hit the Trump administration. The latest challenge to hit the Trump administration. You mean the Democrats, who are at war with our country, decided to attack the Republican president because he's the Republican president. If you're the Republican president, you're guilty. Let me give you a few examples of that. We had a Republican president named Ronald Reagan. He violated the law by winning in a landslide, so they had to shoot him. He survived, but they still had to shoot him. Richard Nixon won by a landslide in 1972. Now, what's crazy about this is Nixon knew that he didn't have to campaign at all because he was in leading in the polls by 19%. You know how Kamala and Trump were fighting back and forth for 2 percentage point difference? He had a 19-point lead, and everybody knew that was the end of the ball game, that he was going to win re-election. And so while he's spending time in China trying to make peace, and while he's spending time in Russia in May trying to make peace, the Democrats are trying to figure out how they're going to get rid of Nixon, because they can't allow a Republican president, to win by a landslide. You just can't. If you win by a landslide, what's that mean? It means you got the black vote. And it's against the law for Republicans to get the black vote. That's just the way it is. Okay? Democrats didn't go through all this bullshit creating a false great impression to impoverish everybody so that they could take over the country for 60 years like they did through a financial scam that Milton Friedman can explain to you. Just go online and type in Milton Friedman, okay, false Great Depression. Milton Friedman exposes fake Great Depression. Listen to him. He'll explain it to you, okay? I figured it out, and that's how I found this stuff. I take documentation, I take what people say, and I think, well, wait a minute, hold on a second. And then I put together 2 and 2, and I come up with 4, and that's when I present the information. So these are the states. It's the latest challenge to hit the Trump administration, which already faces a litany of lawsuits over the National Emergency Declaration. Over the weekend, the Center for Biological Diversity. What do you think that means? I think their code name is Up Your Ass, Mother. Border Network for Human Rights. Border Network for Human Rights, which marched with Beto O'Rourke in El Paso, Texas last week, and the American Civil Liberties Union. At the core of each lawsuit is the argument that Trump is circumventing Congress to fund the wall along the U.S.-Mexico border by declaring an emergency. The war between the states, the Democratic states versus the Republican American states. And now it's January 21st, 2025. Here we go again. What happened? Trump won the election. So the Democrat warmongers on the United States, excuse me, if the Democrats can't be in power to declare war on everybody else around the world, then they have to declare war on the Republicans so that they can then take over and then declare war on everybody. Democrats are the party of war. You don't think so? See who started every war from the United States. 22 Democratic-led states sue over Trump's birthright citizenship order. Lawsuits challenging Trump's order filed in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Washington State. Why those 3 blue states? Why didn't they file this lawsuit in Florida or Texas? Is it because the judges in those states are American? Well, the judges in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Washington are brain-dead Democrat? It's BDD, brain-dead Democrat. Democratic-led states argue executive orders violate U.S. Constitution's 14th Amendment. They don't. Now, I'm going to give you the big secret. why I believe that the 14th Amendment does not apply in this matter. When was the 14th Amendment written? It was written during right after the Civil War, when you had Republicans in no, because they assassinated Lincoln, so we got stuck with his vice president, who turned out to be a Democrat, and he tried to do the best he could to screw everything up. The 14th Amendment was written to like Section 3, where they said Trump couldn't run because of an insurrection, which of course is hard to do when the people aren't armed, so therefore it's not insurrection. By definition, insurrection is armed. Don't tell the Democrats that, because they hate to be told the truth. If they lie all the time, that's the way it is. And that's the purpose of this show, is to provide you with the truth, or the facts, and let you decide what is right and what is wrong. But you need to be informed. So, Democrat-led states and civil rights group filed a slew of lawsuits. Okay. And let's see, the states were, I don't think they mentioned them here, but they're all the states with Democrat governors. That means North Carolina, even though North Carolina is a red state, North Carolina was part of the lawsuit because they have a Democrat governor. Democrat governors do whatever the Democratic leader, Fuhrer, whoever you want to call him, tells them what to do. So once again, the war between the states continues. It picks up right where it left off when a Republican is elected president. Okay. Now I'm just going to throw this one more thing out at you. Fraud. Since the Democrats commit fraud all the time. The statute does not define the phrase obtained by fraud. Fraud is defined by non-technical standards and is not to be restricted by any common law definition or false pretenses. One court has observed, the law does not define fraud, it needs no definition. It is as old as falsehood and as versatile as human ingenuity. Democrats. Fraud ingenuity. In Weiss v. United States, the Fourth Circuit, reviewing a conviction under 18 U.S.C. 2314, also know that fraud is a broad term, which includes false representations, dishonesty, and deceit. Okay? We have an example of fraud. I believe we do. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Here it is. As you know, the Democrats, when they don't like a Donald Trump appointee, they go after him with fraud. Now, the reason why they go after him with fraud is because they don't have any truth to go after him on. So they have to make this shit up. Mr. Hexit, isn't it true that you were found to have been drinking? Isn't it true that you actually never served one day in your life in the military? It's all a scam. All the videos we've seen are fake. Everything you've done in your life is not right. But this one piece of freaking paper from some lying bitch is. She just went a little too far. Okay? This is stupidity by committee. Yes, there is a Democratic Party committee called stupidity. Because sometimes these people are so evil and so intent on committing fraud, they take some stupid pills. Mr. Hexit Frederick became so drunk that he passed out, threw up, and had to be carried out of family events in public settings. Sometimes shouting sexually and racially offensive statements. Therefore, we can assume from this document that he's a racist and he is a misogynist. Did Hillary Clinton write this line? Some lying Democrat, which is 99% of the Democratic Party, wrote this. Mr. Heggs has said that women should not vote or work and that Christians needed to have more children so they could overtake a Muslim population. Now, everybody reading that line knew this was bullshit. You know, they did the same thing to several of the Supreme Court appointments by Trump. If you get appointed by Trump, then you are scum of the universe, even though you're not. The Democrats will tell you they are, and that is fraud. Does that mean that the 2020 election actually was fraudulently committed? Okay. We have an issue about pardons, okay? As you know, Biden pardoned people who hadn't been found guilty yet. And Biden and Trump pardoned people who hadn't been found innocent yet. So let's see. Biden pardoned people who hadn't been found guilty yet. And Trump pardoned people who hasn't been found innocent yet. Now, we know that the majority of the J6 people were falsely accused, falsely imprisoned, and holy shit, wait till you see that. I'm actually hoping that when Pam Bondi becomes Attorney General, she asks Matt Gaetz to come out from behind the microphone. I know he likes to be a TV guy now. He's in the media. And have him handle the J6 investigation. It would be great television. Matter of fact, he could go on TV and talk about it, but he probably can't because a lot of it can't be said until after it's all done. Okay? So January 6th, what do we know? We know that the FBI did have 26 informants at the Capitol riots, and most were involved in the whole operation. Why would the FBI be in charge of this operation? The FBI would only be in charge of the operation if it was a government-run operation run by Nancy Pelosi, who is so guilty she'd be sitting in an electric chair right now after she signs off all the money she has stolen the 30 years she's been in Congress. Isn't it amazing? Nancy Pelosi enters Congress in 1990, and some 30 years later, she goes from being kind of wealthy to mega wealthy, and the United States goes from $500 billion in debt to $36 trillion in debt. Oh my goodness. Nancy Pelosi in Congress for 30 years was good for Nancy Pelosi, but it sure as hell wasn't good for us. I'm sorry. I like using facts. Facts tell the tale. I got some videos that are coming up. So we know that the January 6th was bullshit. Matter of fact, we know that the FBI was hiring people that were either Proud Boys or Oath Keepers to try to get them to lead the fraudulent attack. We've got some videos we're going to show you. January 6th committee issues criminal referrals against Trump and lawyer Eastman. Okay, what do we know about the January 6th committee? Number one, they destroyed all the evidence. Now, why would a committee set up to create a false sense of a criminal act and go after them and go after innocent people and claim something that really can't be claimed, and then terminate and destroy all the evidence? You know, that's against the law, destroying evidence. And you know what's amazing? They went ahead and they arrested 1,500 people and charged them with obstructing an official proceeding. It's a felony under U.S. federal law. And it was enacted as part of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002 as a reaction to the Enron scandal. And it closed a legal loophole on who could be charged with evidence tampering. In all the videos of January 6th, did you ever see the people holding evidence? When they broke into the Senate, were they taking evidence? Did they have evidence on them? Did the Democrats know that they were falsely charging these people, which is a crime? It later became known for its use as a charge against defendants associated with the 2021 U.S. Capitol attack for attempting to obstruct that year's electoral college vote, which the Democrats could not allow to go through because if they did, Donald Trump would have stayed president. And that's why Nancy Pelosi ran this thing. That's why Nancy Pelosi wouldn't allow 10,000 guard. If there were 10,000 National Guard there, even 5,000, nothing would have happened because the FBI wouldn't have been able to do their bullshit. So January 6th committee issues criminal referrals against Trump and lawyer. Of course, those criminal referrals were fraudulent in nature and therefore don't exist. Okay? Now, quorums in Congress. Basically, in order to have a quorum in Congress, you need to have, per the Constitution, at least a majority of the Congress, the House or the Senate there. So, in the House of Representatives, if there's 365 state reps, House reps, what's the majority of what you have to have? I'm sorry, it's 435. So you have to have at least 218 people in the conference, on the floor of the House to have a quorum. Now, if you're now going to add 100 U.S. senators into this organized congressional act, attendant hearing, 100 and 435 comes to 535, and therefore you have to have something like 270 people on the floor to be a quorum. If you were to look up the January 6th congressional record for January 6, 2021, and listen to the instructions by Nancy Pelosi, one of the dumbest bitches on the planet, but she's good at stealing and shit like that. Okay. She says that we're only going to have 44 people, 11 Democrats, 11 Republicans, 11 senators, and 11 reps, 44 people on the floor. We're not going to have a quorum. And why? Because Nancy's too dumb to know about a quorum. She failed to have a quorum when they passed the $1.7 trillion fake inflation act, which got overturned, or portions of it got overturned in Texas because she didn't have a quorum. Nobody else has picked up the fact that that $1.7 trillion needs to go away. Also, it means that Joe Biden was never elected president of the United States. He may have won the popular vote. He may have won the ballot, the election with the 15 million fake ballots, which we all know exist now. I've covered that whole ball game, that whole thing. Okay, here's basically what it was. 25 Democrats walk into a bank and they steal $12 billion. And they walk out the door. And the police are there to arrest them. They go, "Oh, you can't arrest us. We're Democrats, and that's Nancy Pelosi, and that's what we say. Go F yourself." Out the door. They get away with it. Now, just because I don't want you to think I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, I always like to provide proof sources. Now, there's this localized piece of shit who now has his own podcast because he's getting famous. His name is Mark Elias. Mark Elias is hired when you want to defraud an election. Mark Elias is hired if you want to defraud a opponent in the campaign, like Hillary Clinton. Needed to make sure she won. I mean, she didn't destroy people's lives for nothing. Hey, I was one of them. She helped destroy my life. Didn't you, Hillary? See? Hillary had me taken off the air because I had threatened to run against her in the U.S. Senate race in Massachusetts when Ted Kennedy was going to retire. And there was no way she was going to face me in the U.S. Senate race because she watched what I did to her brother the year before. And of course, I didn't win that election because she came down to lie to all the Jewish people and say I was an anti-Semitic Jew and defame the shit out of me. But that's Hillary, that's all. But you know what? It's all written in the book. And I haven't been sued for defamation. Therefore, everything I said in the book must be true. I know this bitch. I know what she's done. Oh, look! There's JFK Jr. in the plane. Oh, my goodness. Hillary now qualifies for the U.S. Senate race in New York, thanks to a plane crash. One of the best ways to get rid of senators. Read it. Look it up in history. Just type in, how many U.S. senators have been killed by plane crashes? I think the number's like 14. Do you think that's a little absurd? So here's Mark Elias, who's totally full of shit. And he brings up this. Now, this is for immediate release on April 21st, 2020. The pandemic had begun February, March, 3 months earlier, in the middle of February, beginning of February. From Washington, D.C. In October, we sued Michigan on behalf of Priorities USA to block their unconstitutional signature matching process. Priorities USA is a nonprofit Democrat scumbag organization. Democracy Docket is a Democratic scumbag nonprofit organization. They're all over the frickin' place. That's what they do. Now, add Michigan to the list of states that we are forced to change their absentee ballot process. Forced to change their absentee ballot process to prevent lawful ballots from being rejected. In other words, if a fraudulent ballot comes in and it hasn't been signed through the mail or it hasn't matched to the person there, then it's not accounted for. Now, they're saying that it was an unconstitutional signature matching process. So, for instance, if you go to the bank and you're going to withdraw money and you have to sign the note and your signature's on file, if that signature doesn't match, do you think they give you the money? No, they don't. But under Michigan law, election officials rejected absentee applications and ballots if they determine that the signature provided with the applications or ballot does not match the voter's signature on file with election authorities. Oh, you can't do that. That makes too much sense. Yeah. We have to get rid of that. But we can't get rid of it because in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Wisconsin, we have Republican legislatures. And the Constitution says any changes in the manner of elections have to be done by the state legislatures. So they can't do this in those states. But we can file a fraudulent lawsuit. A Democrat organization representing a Democrat organization can sue Democrat Michigan Secretary of States and any other Democratic Secretary of States to give them the excuse to go ahead and allow fraudulent ballots to go through without even checking the signatures, because if you don't have to check the signatures anymore, why even look at them? Washington, D.C. in October. Let's see. This was April 2020. April 2020. April 2020. October would have been October 2019. So the Democrats are suing the states October, November, December, January, 4 months before the pandemic hits. Did they know it was coming? Did the Democrats know that Barack Obama had Fauci go ahead and buy this fraudulent, whatever you want to call it, exercise in killing off 1.3 million Americans, which worked out two ways. Number one, you got rid of 1.3 million Americans and their votes, and you got rid of 1.1 million senior citizens who would be collecting Social Security, but now they're dead. They're not getting any of it. So that money, $254 billion, can be available to spend on the new blacks. We're getting new blacks in this country because the old blacks are starting to get tired of our bullshit again. Really? You mean like in Chicago, where Chicago's gone red? Huh? In 2016. In 2016, in that election, Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump. 765,000 less blacks voted in 2016. Why? Because after voting for Obama, who did not a damn thing for black America, nothing, they realized they had been hornswoggled by this nice-looking, fast-talking Kenyan. So they started staying away from the election. Uh-oh, we got problems. The black people are not doing what they're supposed to do. We got to get them back on the plantation. And if we can't get them back on the plantation, we need to bring in some new slaves. Really? You mean like uneducated people, criminals, and organizations, say 18 million from Ecuador, Venezuela, Cuba, Haiti, you name it. Come on in. We're going to give you money. Come in. And all you have to do is sign this registration card. But first you have to get a driver's license. Yeah, we know you don't know how to drive. We don't give a shit. Fill the paperwork out. Here's your money. And then show up to vote. Oh, actually, you don't have to show up to vote. We'll make out a fraudulent mail-in ballot for you and put it through the system. There was only one problem. They couldn't get away with it a second time. That's how they stole 2020. But the secret truck deliveries of the fake ballots that were going to come in later on in the election, they were getting stopped. They were ready for them. Yeah. And that's how Trump got elected in 2024. And that's how Biden got elected in 2020, even though Biden didn't get elected. So the question is, was it worth it to go through bullshit of the Democrats for 4 years? Maybe it was because they're severely in deep shit. And I couldn't care less. Excuse me. I couldn't care less. They had it coming to them. Okay, so now that we've covered that, I'm going to start showing you some videos. Okay, so as we know, there's a pardon war going on. The Democrats are attacking Trump for pardoning people that were falsely accused. Okay, and I told you the law. Okay, the law that didn't pertain to them. That's what they were going for. Now there was one judge that was finding these people innocent. He was not putting them in jail for a fraudulent action because he was a Republican. Yeah, and Republicans follow the law. But the Democrat judges didn't. So they threw these people in jail illegally. Biden, before he left, 5 minutes before he left, he pardoned his family. But they hadn't been found guilty of anything yet. Why did he pardon them? And then he pardoned the J6 committee. Now, why would you pardon the J6 committee? Did they commit criminal acts? Let's see. January 6th committee issues criminal referrals against Trump and lawyer Eastman. Also, the chairman, Benny Thompson, said the criminal justice system can provide accountability, adding, "We have every confidence that the work of this committee will help provide a roadmap to justice." Bullshit. You need to be getting ready to go to jail because when the new attorney general gets in, you guys have had it. Yeah, they've been pardoned. I would throw those pardons right out to prove that Biden was never elected president, and therefore the pardons don't exist. So the first video. As you know, when you have a powerful Republican president and he's getting ready to run for re-election, you have to destroy him, demean him, whatever. So they decide to impeach Trump for something that didn't happen. It's funny. They put 1,500 Americans in jail for something that actually didn't happen, didn't actually commit a crime. Well, I got on the bus and they arrested me. Yeah, something about missing a step or something. So the first video is in the House hearing with Jim Jordan, and he's masterful in this. And the first impeachment was, of course, a complete fraud, and this situation exposes it to be a fraud. The Democrats falsely impeached Donald Trump on fraudulent charges that didn't exist.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Ambassador, when did it happen?
When did what happen?
The announcement. When did President Zelensky announce that the investigation was going to happen? On page 14, you said this: was there a quid pro quo? Today's your opening statement. As I testified previously, with regard to a requested White House call, White House meeting, the answer is yes, that there needed to be a public statement from President Zelensky. When the chairman asked you about the security assistance dollars, you said there needed to be a public announcement from Zelensky. So I'm asking you a simple question. When did that happen?
Never did.
Never did. They got the call July 25th. They got the meeting, not in the White House, but in New York on September 25th. They got the money on September 11th. When did the meeting happen again?
Never did.
You don't know who was in the meeting?
Which meeting are you referring
The
to?
meeting that never happened. Who was in it? You know how you know how Zelensky announced it? Did he tweet it? Did he do a press statement? Did he do a press conference? You know how that happened? I mean, you got all three of them wrong. They get the call, they get the meeting, they get the money. It's not 2 + 2, it's 0 for 3. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. And you told Mr. Castor that the president never told you that the announcement had to happen to get anything. In fact, he didn't just not tell you that, he explicitly said the opposite. The gentleman from Texas just read it. You said to the President of the United States, "What do you want from Ukraine?" The President, "I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. I want Zelensky to do the right thing. I want him to do what he ran on." What did he run on, Ambassador Sondland?
Transparency.
And dealing with corruption, right?
That's right.
Mr. Castor raised another important point. Why didn't you put that statement in your opening statement? I think you said you couldn't fit it in. Is that right? Said we might be here for 46 minutes instead of 45 minutes.
It wasn't purposeful, trust me.
Wasn't purposeful?
No.
Couldn't fit it in a 23-page opener. The most important statement about the subject matter at hand, the President of the United States in a direct conversation with you about the issue at hand, and the President says, let me read it one more time. What do you want from Ukraine, Mr. President? I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. I want this new guy, brand new guy in politics. His party just took over. I want Zelensky to do the right thing. I want him to run on and do what he ran on, which is deal with corruption. And you can't find time to fit that in a 23-page opening statement. You know what a quid pro quo is?
I do.
This for that, right? Looks to me like Ukraine got that 3 times, and there was no this. We didn't do anything. Or excuse me, they didn't have to do anything. I've never seen anything like that. And this is when the call came out. Y'all remember this? When the call came out, everyone said, we're going to quid pro quo. There's going to be that was what was in the call. And of course, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. Remember what the complaint said? Remember what the memo said of the whistleblower? This call was frightening. This call was scary. All those things. None of that materialized. None of that materialized. I yield back.
They did it again in 2021, and they hired the supreme liar of the Democratic Party. You'll see him. We got video of him lying through his teeth, okay, who was caught creating fraud on documentation. He fraudulently put together this documentation trying to prove Trump did something that he didn't do. Tucker Carlson interviewing the police chief about January 6th. And then the next video, he's interviewing the police captain who can't understand why the January 6th committee didn't invite him to testify. Maybe because they didn't want the truth that he knew.
You've described this as an intelligence failure, but if failure is something that happens accidentally.
None of the intelligence that was coming up talking about the storming of the Capitol, killing members of Congress, or killing my police officers was ever discussed at the conference calls that I was on, at least.
That doesn't seem to make sense at all.
It doesn't make sense. I'm looking at my men and women having their asses handed to them, and my first thought was, fuck it, I will take whatever discipline there is.
Once things got out of control, for 71 minutes, Pelosi refused to allow you to bring in the National Guard. Why don't we have answers?
It doesn't seem like people really want to get to the bottom of it, and it gets worse from there. I had a conference call with the leaders of all the law enforcement. It was a call I coordinated. Not one person on that call talked about any concerns for the intelligence, the attack on the Capitol that we were seeing that was out there. That's what's scary.
This sounds like a setup to me. I'm sorry, it does.
New Jersey State Police beat DC National Guard to the Capitol.
Wait, cops drove from New Jersey before the National Guard could get from the Armory on Capitol Hill to the Capitol. Why isn't this story everywhere?
I have no idea.
Tark Johnson spent 22 years as a Capitol police officer. On January 6th, he says he was in charge of securing the certification of the presidential election. So he was right in the middle of it. If anyone was, Tark Johnson was. Here's more of our sit-down interview with him. Mr. Johnson, thank you for joining us.
And thank you for having me.
So from the outside, here's how it looked. We now know that huge parts of the federal government were aware that there was going to be something big happening at the Capitol on January 6th. They knew there were going to be big demonstrations there, and they prepared for that. But the Capitol Police, on which you served for 22 years, did not seem prepared at all, and of course that would be the front line in preparedness. Was the Capitol Police prepared for that day?
The frontline officers and supervisors were not prepared for that at all.
When you say it all, so you had no idea it was coming?
We knew that there was going to be a demonstration that day, but we had no idea that we were going to be facing what we faced on that actual day.
So things start to fall apart, people stream in the building, you call upwards in the command chain, help me, you don't get a response, what do you do next?
So around 2 o'clock, it may have been a little bit after 2 o'clock, I hear a officer say that the Capitol was breached. So I ran inside of the building. I ran, to assist. I knew that that location of where that first breach occurred was near where the members of Congress would be locked in. We initiated a lockdown, so that means the chamber doors on the Senate side and the House side were locked. So that means the members of Congress would be safe inside those locked rooms.
Yes.
So I ran over to the House side first to make sure that those doors were locked. Then I ran over to the Senate side to make sure those doors were locked. So I asked over the radio, and I say something to the effect that we need direction. We have hundreds of people inside of the building. What do you want us to do? We need some direction. I heard no response. No response. So At that particular time,
How could nobody responded?
nobody responded.
At some point, you put on a MAGA hat.
Yes. Now,
I think we have it. I think we have the actual MAGA
yes,
hat.
we actually do have the mega hag. I have it here in plastic, so here it is. Want to take it? Yeah.
J6, it
Yes,
says.
yeah, I labeled it J6.
So tell us why you put the hat on and how that was related to your suspension.
That's what got me national attention, was the wearing of the MAGA hat. They were officers. We had a distress call that there were approximately 10 or 11 officers, I can't remember the exact number, were trapped at the top of the rotunda steps. So I elicited the help of some CDU officers to help me go up the steps. And I kept yelling that all the way up the steps, giving people high fives, trying to make it up the steps to get to the guys. And as I was going down, there was a demonstrator on, I believe he was on my right side of me, so he reached over. I didn't know what he was doing. I didn't know if he was going to hit me, and he put the MAGA hat on my head. So as I was still trying to walk down the steps, then he asked for the hat back, and I said, well, I would like to keep it because the hat's going to help me.
Yeah, it's your passport through the crowd.
Yeah, exactly.
So the Capitol Police is by definition nonpartisan. It serves both parties in the Congress. It protects members of both parties.
100%.
And it has to be that way. In the wake of January 6th, you saw what looked like partisanship at the Capitol Police. Did you perceive that?
I'm still shocked because as a Capitol Police officer, we even had we had our chief of police at the time. His name was, Stephen's son. And he called for all the officers who was at work that day. He called for everybody to come in, and we all went to Emancipation Hall in the CVC. And and this was during the Black Lives Matter demonstrations.
Yes.
And he told us that as Capitol Police officers, we need to stay neutral. We need to stay neutral, period. So we were like, okay, that's what we do. Because we protect Democrats, we protect, Republicans, we protect everybody. So we need to stay neutral. So then after January 6th, you had some police officers who wasn't neutral. It didn't seem neutral.
At all?
Yeah, and that was an issue, yes.
So, that devalues the credibility of Capitol Police, doesn't it, if they're allowed to be partisan in public?
They're supposed to be neutral, period.
Since you were there on January 6th, what did you think of the job of the January 6th committee? Do you think that they were honest in the way they approached it? Do you think they got to the truth?
I prayed almost daily that they would get to me. I was never asked to testify. And if you listen to the radio...
You were never asked by the January 6th committee?
I was never asked by anybody connected to the January 6th committee to testify. I ask myself why every day. And every day I might have a different answer, but I looked at what pretty much they focused on Donald Trump and not the failures of the Capitol Police.
Okay, then we've got fake CNN reporter sets up fake aspect of January 6th. And then we have Senator Markey from the Mass Institution for State Certified Bullshitters. Every Democrat comment on anything is an orchestrated lie. Trump pardon of innocent people, a disgrace. Biden pardon of guilty. J6.
All right. Let's go to some of his other executive actions. You were on Capitol Hill during the January 6th attack. Trump just signed pardons and commutations for all of those who took part in the attack, including those who were the most violent. How are you going to work with a man who pardoned the people that sent you and others into a state of panic and fear on the Capitol that day?
Yeah. Right here in the Capitol complex, there was an attack by the people who Donald Trump pardoned yesterday. It is absolutely irresponsible. We had hundreds of police who were harmed physically and mentally by their necessity of fighting off all of those people who got pardoned last night so that, I heard the president say, they could come over to the inaugural ball. This is an absolute desecration of the presidential pardon powers. It sends a signal that it is okay for Proud Boys, okay for oath takers and others to once again begin their thoughts about violent insurrection against the United States of America. And for those of us who were here in the Capitol complex on that day, on January 6th, and every day see these police officers, knowing that their families as well have been just adversely impacted in a permanent way, it was an absolute disgrace what the president did last night.
The people Biden pardoned people that haven't been found guilty yet. But that's okay. We don't need to say anything because he's a Democrat. The war between the states, there's no gray area. Republicans are guilty. Democrats are innocent. Remember, Democrats are innocent until proven innocent. And Republicans are guilty until proven guilty. And that makes tremendous sense. Since Republicans are never going to be found guilty, then they're guilty until they're proven guilty. And Democrats aren't innocent, but they're innocent until proven innocent. Makes all the sense in the world. Remember, we're dealing with a group of people who got up and left the country in 1860 because a Republican was president. They did kill that Republican president 4 years later because assassination is a situation that Democrats really love to employ, especially when it's against a Democrat president. Only one Democratic president has been assassinated in the history of the United States, and that's because he refused to go to war. January 6, 2017, where we see the new hero, bullshit master, Jamie Raskin, explain why Trump shouldn't be awarded the presidency, who tampered with evidence in the impeachment number 2, again, and allowing these 1,500 criminals to be pardoned. And they could be going all over the... How many people do you think these 1,500 people are going to kill? Oh my God. 1,500 people, they're going to kill everybody. Oh, no, we don't have to worry about the 18 million, of which half of them are murderers and criminals. Yeah, so they've raped women. Yeah, so they've beaten people up. Yeah, so they kill people. But they're the new Democrats. We brought them in to replace the black people because they're not paying attention anymore. When those people finally think they're free, yeah, and you know you're effed about it. It's about time. It's about time. Shelby Scott made a comment about 7-8 years ago that the biggest problem blacks were going to have is how to deal with freedom. Because they're free now. They can do whatever the hell they want to. They can be whatever they want to be. They don't need DEI. They don't need affirmative action. Well, we have to help the black people out because, you know, for so many years we've had to pull up with that Democrat bullshit. So you're going to see the pathological liar, and he goes on, how many people are going to be killed by the J6 people? He doesn't give a shit about all the people killed by the illegal aliens, or, I'm sorry, the new Democrats.
Mr. President, the certificate of the electoral vote of the state of Florida seems to be regular in form and authentic, and it appears therefrom that Donald J. Trump of the state of New York received 29 votes for president, and Michael R. Pence of the state of Indiana received 29 votes for vice president.
For what purpose is the member right?
I have an objection because 10 of the 29 electoral votes cast by Florida were cast by electors not lawfully certified because they violated Florida's prohibition against dual office holding.
Debate is out of order. Section 15 and 17 of the Title III of the United States Codes require that any objection be presented in writing, signed by both members of the House of both a member of the House of Representatives and a senator. Is the objection in writing and signed not only by the member of the House of Representatives but also by a senator?
It is in writing, Mr. President.
Is it signed by a senator?
Not as of yet, Mr. President.
In that case, the objection cannot be.
If you stand by and support Donald Trump, who on day one, as the chairman of the committee just said, day one of his presidency, pardon 1,500 insurrectionists, including hundreds of people who violently assaulted and attacked American police officers. And now you have the temerity to come forward and say this is about public safety? How much safer are we now with these 1,500 criminals at large in Washington, D.C. and going out into the country? Are you vouching that these people are not going to be attacking any other police officers? Are you vouching that they're no longer a threat to public safety? What an outrage. What a scandal.
And then we have eighth video about Bowser's violating civil rights of Americans that were in jail.
We are outside the D.C. Central Detention Center, where there are numerous January 6 prisoners still being held inside, despite the fact that President Trump signed a pardon for them over 24 hours ago. The D.C. government is stonewalling President Trump's pardon. Take a listen to this story.
A lot of families have lost everything. Their husbands, the fathers, the breadwinners have been taken from them and put in prison unlawfully for many years for the simplest of infractions.
You said this wasn't the first prison that your son was at. Can you talk to us about what they charged him with and why he was at another prison before coming here?
Sure. What they do is it's called diesel therapy, so you can't settle. So what they'll do is when they first picked my son up on January 16, 2021, they scooped him up and then they started taking him from prison to prison. Son spent 202 days down in the bowels of the D.C. prison. The conditions there are so egregious. He was actually sifting water through a sock because there's so much rust in the bottom of that prison that you can't drink the water. And they would lay him on a cot. They had lights. This was like Vietnam, where they had lights on all the time. You had 2 blankets. They call them suicide blankets. And just laid him on a basically a block, and you didn't even have a mattress. So and then what they do, as soon as you start to get communications with your attorneys and your family, they scoop you up and they take you to another prison. And then so you'll be there for 2 weeks. You're usually a week to 2 weeks. You're in solitary, where they transition you into the new prison, and then you're there for maybe 3 to 5 months. They ship you out again. And there was a time that on 2 Christmases ago, we didn't know where he was for I want to say almost 3 weeks. How is that possible? How come you can't, call his family? Nobody knows where he's at. When you can't talk to your attorneys, you can't hardly even talk to your family, and you can't possibly, make a defense. And then when you do get your attorneys, you talk to your attorneys, and then they scoop you up and they move you to the prison. All your notes and stuff, they take. So they know exactly what your defense is. It's like playing cards with your opponent looking over your back and looking at your hand. It's impossible to win. What has happened under the Biden regime was so egregious, so anti-American, unconstitutional. They walked all over our Bill of Rights. Thank God President Trump came in here, because not just for our patriots and our families, but for all of America, because if they didn't like you, they would do anything to shut you up. They tried to shut down my businesses. They had the local the state agencies come after my companies. I got a bunch of companies like restaurants, and so they'll stop at nothing to shut you down, and I've lived through it, and so here we are today.
And then the new leader of the Democrat bullshit program, Senator Murphy from Constitutional Connecticut.
What do you think of Elon Musk, perhaps the president's most visible advisor, doing 2 Heil Hitler salutes last night at the president's televised rally?
No, Elon Musk did not do those salutes. I was not at the rally, but I can tell you I've been at many rallies with Elon Musk, who loves to cheer when President Trump says we need to send our U.S. space program to Mars. Elon Musk is a visionary. I'm looking forward to his work in DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, and look forward to looking how we can be more efficient and effective, but that is simply not the case. And to say so is the American people are smart. They see through it. They support Elon Musk. We are proud to be the country of such successful entrepreneurs. That is one of our greatest strengths as Americans.
And then the 10th video is the communist progressive wing attacking wealthy people. Attacking wealthy people. Trump had 3 wealthy people sitting behind him in the inauguration. Holy shit. When you listen to these people, remember, they're full of shit. And they're at war with our country. And they have been for 165 years.
Good afternoon. I'm Greg Casar. I am chair of the Progressive Caucus and represent the heart of Texas. Thank you so much for coming. On his first day in office, Donald Trump showed the American people exactly who his administration is serving, the richest handful of people on the planet. At inauguration, sitting right behind the president and in front of his own cabinet were three men whose combined wealth is more than the wealth of the entire bottom half of this country combined. Trump could have had in that front row a firefighter from California, a school teacher from Uvalde, a World War II veteran. Instead, Trump isn't putting the good of Americans first. He's putting Bezos, Musk, Zuckerberg, and billionaires with armies of lobbyists first.
But it's evident that the purpose for 16 states trying to prevent Trump from building the wall, to the 22 states trying to prevent Trump from not allowing these illegal immigrant children to have birthright citizenship when they shouldn't, because they're the children of illegals who don't belong in the country. Therefore, they're in there based on a crime, and the family's got to be removed. Okay? But the Democrats need them because the black people aren't voting for us anymore like we want them to. Really? Is that why you stole the election in 2020? Is that why you had 15 million votes kind of salted into the black communities in Detroit, Philadelphia, Atlanta, and Milwaukee? Is that why? Because you knew the blacks weren't voting for you in the numbers that you wanted to, so you had to replace them? Okay? And is that why you sat there and allowed everything to be stolen from the black citizens of Chicago, who are now Chicago Red, and brought in all these illegals and gave them these cards with money on them and free housing and free everything? What the hell is that? I'm going to say this again. I've been saying this for a while. But the future of the Republican Party is that blacks return to the party that was created to save them and free them. They all should be Republicans. They shouldn't be Democrats. Come on. You ever listen to a black Democrat talk? You ever hear a black Republican talk? You ever heard Wesley Hunt? Byron Donalds? These are black guys. How come they speak so well? They're not supposed to be able to speak well. That's why we have to take care of them. Yeah? Wait, because it's coming. Because I'm predicting the next governor of Virginia's going to be a black woman who's a Marine. And you're not going to want to mess with her. She'll chew you up in little pizzas. And she could actually become the first black woman to become president. Not Kamala. Kamala's too brain dead. Winsome Sears, Marine, Lieutenant Governor of the state of Virginia. Watch for her. She's sharp as a tack. And the Democrats are already shaking their boots. You watch. They're going to put together a program to attack her because they'll have to. Because that's the way it used to be, you know. The blacks when they first got freed, they all came into the Republican Party. And they were in the Congress and the Senate. But the Democrats didn't like that. But that's history. I'm here to inform you of what's going on so you can read it for yourself. The internet's amazing. Just type in your question. Okay? Like say, was there a black economic golden age from 1900 to 1930? Type it in and read it and see what happened. Okay? The Democrats didn't like that, so that was one of the reasons why they came up with the fake Great Depression. Want to know what I'm knowing? Type in Milton Friedman, okay, myth of the Great Depression. Type that in. His video will come up. I've already done it on a show. I've already played it. You can go back and you can see my shows have already covered this. I've covered all this stuff. I'm kind of getting tired of covering it. But we're at war. We've been at war since 1860. We're in the 165th year of war with the Democratic Party, and I'm sick and tired of it. And that's why I've come out with the two-state solution. We're going to go after 8 states that are red, but they have blue capitals. California, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, Minnesota, Illinois, New York. And we're going to secede sections of the state, just like West Virginia did in 1863. Okay, West Virginia was tired with the Democrats, and so they switched. And yeah, a lot of times they were Democrats, but they did secede because of taxation without representation. The red counties in these blue capital states are not represented. And all you have to do is look to see why the Democrats have all the governors, all the secretary of states, all the attorney generals, all the judges. You're all Democrats, okay? You're all Democrats. There's no way that the people in the red counties are going to have any rights to anything. They're not even allowed to have representation. Chicago stole 4 Republican seats in the House from them. New York took 4. California steals 10 seats every year. They've at least stole 5 or 6 in this last election. And we're still waiting to see if they're going to go after them on it, which they should. Okay. Any questions? Write to your congressman. And you know why you have to write to your congressman? Because they won't let you write to anybody else. Ever tried that? If you don't live in that district, you can't communicate with that rep. No. You have to talk to that jackass that's elected in your area. And the Republican congressman that in my district is Francisco Centimani, I don't know shit, Goldstein. He's worthless. I love you. Bye.